The ship docked with a hiss, and the gravity stabilized. From her seat near the rear, Lieutenant Kara Mendez rose without ceremony, her black tactical suit absorbing the soft blue light of the corridor. She stepped out into the orbital training complex of Rygos X, a fortress in space engineered for warriors from every corner of the Galactic Accord. Here, species honed their combat skills against simulations and each other, striving for a supremacy that was never truly shared. Kara adjusted the neural sync patch at the base of her skull as she passed a squad of armored Cyrilians. Their compound eyes followed her silently, twitching mandibles betraying the disdain they didn't voice aloud. She was used to it. Humanity's entry into the Accord was recent, contentious, and regarded by most as a charity decision. Their world, classified Deathworld Class 5, was known more for environmental chaos and blood-soaked history than technological sophistication. To the others, humans were clever apes, unrefined, unpredictable, and ultimately beneath the discipline of true galactic order. The briefing chamber loomed ahead, its glass walls overlooking the crimson swirl of Rygos below. Inside, warriors from 6 systems sat in tight semicircles, their battle armor clinking against reinforced stools. In the center stood Varkthal, the Zarnak commander and lead instructor, towering, plated in bioarmor, and built like a siege engine. His voice, metallic and multi-toned, echoed across the room as he projected tactical overlays onto the wall-sized holo display. "Observe the central nervous paths of the human female," he said, gesturing to a glowing blue anatomical figure. "Note the inefficient distribution of musculature. Bone density increases compensatorily due to gravity stress." Crude, but interesting. Kara entered without fanfare, her boots silent against the alloy floor. The murmurs ceased. Varkthal turned his head, his visor split apart like a mechanical flower, revealing jet-black eyes rimmed in chitin. A beat of silence passed between them. "You are late, Deathworlder," he said, not bothering to hide the sneer in his voice. "I wasn't briefed on the galactic definition of punctuality," Kara replied evenly, taking a seat without permission. Several of the trainees stiffened. A few smirked. Varkthal didn't blink, his kind didn't need to, but his jaw flexed in irritation. "The human has teeth," muttered a Plenary cadet behind her, his voice vibrating in the fluid of his neck sac. Varkthal returned to the projection. "Today we begin Phase 7, Adaptive Combat Protocols. All participants will enter the Gauntlet arena. No simulations. No safety locks. Full lethal authorization." The room shifted. Confidence. Anticipation. But also a ripple of tension. "The Gauntlet is not for entertainment," the commander continued. "It is tradition. A crucible. And as is custom, one among you will challenge me in the final sequence." Whispers rose again. No one had beaten Varkthal in 8 full cycles. He'd shattered exosets, torn apart synthetics, and once caved in a Iron's carapace with a single blow. "You," he said, turning his gaze back to Kara. "Human. Your file states hand-to-hand mastery, 10 confirmed field kills, neural conditioning, and survival of 6 planetary extinction-level threats. Do you consent to the final challenge?" Kara didn't answer right away. She stood, walked to the center of the room, and glanced up at the display still glowing with her anatomy. "I didn't come to impress you," she said, tapping a sequence on the console to close the overlay. "I came to learn how you fight, and then beat you at it." A hush fell over the room. Not stunned disbelief, something quieter, heavier. The kind of silence that arrives before a storm. Varkthal tilted his head, intrigued. "Very well. You are entered. The Gauntlet begins in 6 standard hours. Dismissed." As the others filed out, a Dracari approached Kara, the spines on his back rising slightly. "You're brave," he said in his rasping dialect. "Or suicidal." "I'm from Earth," Kara replied. "We don't know the difference." The chamber emptied. Varkthal remained alone at the center, staring at the now dormant display. His mind ran over every engagement he'd fought, every combatant he'd crushed. The Deathworlder was smaller, slower by metrics, limited in range. And yet, Something in her eyes unsettled him. He turned back toward the window. Below, Rygos burned with volcanic breath, casting a red glow across the hull. The arena would be ready soon. So would she. The gauntlet awakened. A low hum pulsed through the arena's substructure, resonating like the heartbeat of a buried titan. Walls retracted. The floor split into hexagonal plates that shifted restlessly, transforming the once flat surface into a war zone of inclines, spikes, and shifting terrain. Plasma vents hissed, releasing brief flares of white-blue light as the atmosphere adjusted. Hover drones circled above like watchful vultures, capturing every angle, every breath. Kara stood at the ready platform, her pulse steady beneath her armor. The neural link adjusted to the arena's calibration, syncing her vitals and perception into a hyper-alert state. Time felt thicker here, stretched at the edges. She wasn't nervous. She was calculating. Across from her, Varkthal emerged from a blast door with the calm gravity of an executioner. His armor had shifted, adapted, gleaming dark steel interwoven with living muscle fiber. His weapon of choice, a twin-bladed staff crowned with energy arcs, rested effortlessly in his grasp. It wasn't just a tool of destruction. It was a declaration. Remember, the arena AI intoned from overhead, lethal force authorized. Combatants, begin when ready. Kara didn't move. Varkthal advanced slowly at first, his gait deliberate, almost ceremonial. The first exchange came without warning. He lunged, covering ground in a blink, bringing the staff down in a vertical arc that cracked the platform where Kara had just been. She sidestepped, fluid, low, and retaliated with a flurry of palm strikes to his flank. The hits landed, barely, skimming against his armor with enough force to jar him. He grinned. "You move like prey," he said, pivoting with surprising speed and striking low with a sweeping blow that Kara jumped to evade, twisting midair to land on a raised platform behind him. "No," she answered. "I move like a species that hunted predators bigger than me for fun." The arena responded to their fight, adaptive systems shifting hazards into new positions. Gravity fluctuated, portions of the floor dropped into molten pits, while others rose as jagged spires. Kara used the changes. She timed her momentum, launching from one elevated plate to another with ease born from Earth's chaotic terrain. She'd trained in collapsed cities, radioactive ruins, seismic zones where stillness meant death. Varkthal, for all his power, moved like a tank, unstoppable, but bound by inertia. His reach was overwhelming, and in close quarters, his strikes dented steel. Kara couldn't block. She deflected, redirected, never meeting his blows head-on. She began laying traps mid-fight, rerouting power conduits, triggering minor explosions from exposed vents, and luring him through unstable zones. But he adapted too. During a sudden low-gravity surge, Varkthal launched himself at her with brutal precision, slamming her into a wall with enough force to rupture the outer plating. She gasped, blood tasting metallic in her mouth, vision blurring. "Your species fights like insects," he growled. "You sting. You flee." She spat on the floor, wiped her mouth, and laughed. "And yours fights like statues. Big. Impressive. But cracked in the right place, useless." She ducked under his neck swing, rolled behind a pillar, and yanked free a damaged power rod from the wall. The current flared as she jammed it into the ground. A nearby drone sparked and crashed. No more cameras. No more broadcast. Now it was just war. Kara shifted gears. She wasn't trying to win by spectacle anymore. She fought dirty, Earth-style. A shard of shattered metal became a throwing knife. A fallen energy coil exploded in his face. She slammed her elbow into his knee joint, twisted his staff loose for a second, and drove a punch into his exposed throat seam. For the first time, he stumbled. That stumble turned into fury. Varkthal roared and threw his staff, spinning like a bladed comet. It grazed her arm and tore through her armor, leaving a searing gash. She cried out but didn't fall. Pain was a language she spoke fluently. Her breathing quickened. She could feel the weight pressing down, not just from the increased gravity cycles, but from the expectation bearing down on her shoulders. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was proving Earth wasn't a mistake. Varkthal charged again, faster than before, a blur of muscle and violence. Kara ducked under his lunge, seized his trailing arm, and twisted into a roll that threw him off balance, momentarily exposed. She drove a boot into his side and kicked him into a rising platform. He landed hard but recovered with a snarl. Impressive. For a Deathworlder. Impressive, she said back, for someone about to lose. They clashed again, raw, relentless. His strength. Her cunning. He broke through one of her feints and slammed a fist into her gut, nearly lifting her off her feet. She coughed blood but grabbed his arm as she fell, using his own weight to flip him. They both crashed into the metal floor. Neither moved for a second. Both bled. Both breathed heavy. And then they rose. The final seconds of the round ticked down, but the audience had forgotten time. Those watching from the upper chambers, officers, analysts, skeptics, had gone silent. What they saw was not a demonstration. It was a revelation. Earth hadn't sent a diplomat. It had sent a weapon. And it wasn't finished yet. Smoke hissed from fractured plating. The arena's lights flickered as its adaptive systems strained to keep up. Varkthal's exo-armor hung in pieces, slashed and half-melted from redirected plasma. His breathing had grown ragged, the layers of his synthetic musculature twitching under the strain of injury and pride. Kara, too, was bloodied, one arm useless, a jagged burn crawling up her neck, but her stance hadn't broken. If anything, it had solidified. They faced each other at the arena's core, surrounded by debris, collapsed platforms, and the still sparking remnants of their weapons. The staff lay somewhere behind Varkthal, split in two. Kara no longer needed hers. You could yield, he offered, voice low and foreign through a cracked rebreather. Kara didn't flinch. You don't get to offer mercy when you've already lost. Varkthal laughed, a sound that vibrated like a war horn echoing in a cave. He moved again, slower now, like a beast unchained, favoring his left side but determined. Kara didn't wait. She darted forward, closing the distance with brutal efficiency, striking low and twisting around him, her elbows slamming into the pressure seam beneath his third rib. He grunted, swung wide, and caught only air. She ducked, swept his leg, and as he fell, locked her legs around his neck in a tight triangle choke, her weight shifting into a pin as they collapsed together. He fought against it, clawed at her arm, rolled to his knees. But she tightened the hold, grit in her teeth, face a mask of quiet, focused rage. Then it happened, the tremble in his limbs, the drop of tension, a faint, choked gasp that ended in stillness. Varkthal slumped forward. Kara released him and staggered back onto one knee, panting. Her vision swam, but her focus remained crystalline. She had done it. No more simulations. No theoreticals. No debates. She had beaten the unbeaten. Overhead, the arena AI crackled back to life, finally restoring its damaged systems. A cold, clinical voice echoed. Combat concluded. Winner, Lieutenant Kara Mendez of Earth. For a moment, nothing moved. Then the observation chamber above, the glass-walled command tower, came alive with subtle movement. The ranking officers, once composed in their armor-clad pride, stood in stunned silence. A few turned to one another. Others stared down at the human, trying to make sense of what they'd just witnessed. The silence broke when Kara rose fully and looked up at them, her posture defiant despite the torn suit, despite the blood. Her voice rang out, steady and unshaken. You underestimated us. No one answered. You brought us here expecting obedience, expecting awe. You thought Earth was backwards, savage. But we were forged in extinction events. We evolved to adapt, to outthink, outfight, outlast. The quiet that followed wasn't hostile. It was reverent. The kind born when predators realize they've been sitting beside something worse. Below, Varkthal stirred. He didn't rise. He knelt, breathing heavy, but his head bowed. "You fight without fear," he said. "Without honor, some would say. But with clarity." "I fight to win," Kara answered simply. He met her eyes then, with a look stripped of superiority. It was something closer to respect. "You've earned your place among us. Not as a trainee, not even as an equal." She narrowed her gaze. "Then as what?" He slowly extended one bloodied arm, hand curled into a warrior's offer. "As Death Guard." There were audible gasps from above. Even among the Accord elite, the Death Guard were legend. Not a rank, a sentence. Admission meant exile into the galaxy's darkest conflicts, against threats even the Alliance wouldn't name. Kara looked at the hand for a moment, her mind racing with possibilities. Earth's place in the Accord, the fear she could command, the missions she would face. She accepted the grip. The AI chimed again. Designation updated. Lieutenant Kara Mendez. Provisional Death Guard. Status active. She didn't smile, didn't bow, just turned away, walking toward the exit corridor as the platform beneath her slowly reset. The arena shifted again, preparing itself for future battles, but none would be remembered quite like this. From the shadows of the observation deck, a figure in a crimson cloak leaned forward and whispered into a communicator. "Initiate protocol. Deathworld Ascension. She is ready." And somewhere, far beyond Rygo's X, something old and watching opened its eyes.